Hey, hi, hello! How's everybody doing? Welcome to another live brew day from Snail House. Woo! And it's the last Witcher beer. Can't believe it. We did it. Well, we're doing it. May or may not work. We'll find out. I don't think anyone's here yet, which is totally fine by me. I'm sitting here doing math. Super exciting, right? Turns out brewing is a lot of math. And it's a lot of, unsurprisingly, like dilution concentration math. So we have, things keep making noises back here. We have slightly more liquid than I planned, but our gravity seems okay. There was almost a disaster during the sparge step. I mean, it was technically a disaster. It overflowed. I did a bad job of estimating how much volume the grain and sparge water was gonna need. Did a bad job. But that's okay, we survived. As far as I can tell, our gravity is gonna be okay. I'll take another gravity reading like halfway through the boil, and I should have some amber DME in the fridge, which will go great with our nat class. Hey, hi, hello. Which will go well with our flavor profile if I need to add extra sugar. But we should be okay. All the crises, I think, have been averted. Yeah, last Witcher beer. The end of an era. Stoked for brew day. Yeah, me too. Thanks for being here. How's everything? I gotta get a cup of coffee and I'm ready. Good luck in your coffee journey. I'm gonna skim off some hot break with my ladle. Too many things in my kitchen. Spanathespis! Just in and out today while I do some housework. I got him. I got him again. I'm so clever. Thespis, thanks for lurking. Thanks for saying hi. Good for you for doing housework. Nice try. Nice try hugging. We don't do that here. We do. We're a big fan of hugs. But this is also I find this funny. And what is the point of Twitch if not my own entertainment? Right? That's why you stream on Twitch? So we're waiting for the boil. We're getting pretty close. This is going to be a 60-minute boil today. Couldn't possibly think of another reason. Me neither. We're going to do a 60-minute boil today. Usually we do 30-minute boils because I like shortcuts that are not detrimental to the final product. The reason we're doing a 60-minute boil is because of this Pilsner grain that we're going to be using. When you use Pilsner malts, it can be more likely to cause an off flavor of like creamed corn, which comes from dimethyl sulfide. And so the best way to kind of hedge your bets and make sure that the Pilsner is not going to go corny on you is to give it a nice long hot boil. I usually avoid using Pilsner malt for that reason. I would rather do a 30-minute boil. And modern malts are also very different than historic malts, and they modify better and they're a little cleaner. They can do actual like chromatography to find out what is the content of the malts. So it's a better product than it was like 150, 200 years ago. So it's less likely that it'll go corny, but just to be safe, we're going to do that 60-minute boil. So I waited to start streaming until we were about to start the boil. Usually I have you guys join me when I am sparging, when the mash is finished and we do the sparge step. I'm really glad that I wasn't streaming for the sparge step because, oh man, there was so much liquid all over my stove that I then had to clean. How embarrassing. I'm going to go over the recipe later because we're going to have 60 minutes to kill. And by that I mean enjoy spending time together for 60 minutes, not just killing time. So I'll go over the recipe, why I picked Pilsner. I probably could have gone with regular 2-row, but yeah, it'll be good. And we're going to be putting this beer on top of the yeast from the Redanian lager. Delightful. Hopefully not too echoey. Delightful though. But a giant mess makes for good content. Hey Rainer, thanks for being here. Yeah, probably. It probably, you know, who doesn't love oh shit and then lots of stove noises, because that's what it was. How does everything sound? Can you hear me? Can you hear the music? Was the sound alert echoey? Sounds great. I saw Beer Me Loves Beer. All good on my side. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here, everyone. Like I said, we are waiting for the boil. It's getting real steamy. And I can see all of the starchy, carby structure things inside just floating under the surface. And you can see we're getting lots of foamy hot break forming. So we're well on our way. This is as hot as my stove goes, which is why I usually don't boil beers bigger than this, because I don't think my stove could do it. Let's do some shout outs. We got Nat Class here. Spawn of Thespis was here. How's everyone's Wednesday going? Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what we need first. We probably need our 60-minute hop edition first, which is going to be half an ounce of Triumph. We might as well get all of our additions weighed out. And we're going to need the Triumph first. And then we're going to need the Styrian Goldings. Nat says, I've been uber emotional this morning because I experienced a new art thing that hits in just the right way. Okay. It sounded like it was going to be a bad thing, but then it turned into a good thing, so that's exciting. Rainer is good. I hit the gym and my hair doesn't look like Einstein anymore. Always, always good. I mean, I do like Einstein. Mia! Thanks for being here, Mia. You missed brew days. Well, here we are. Here we are back again. Alright. So we weighed out. How are you? I'm great. This is my second beer that I'm brewing of the day. I decided to knock out a double brew day. So I have an entire keg filled with IPL, which is an India pale lager, which is kind of a new, hip, trendy style that I like a lot. And Now we're on to the big boy. We're on to the Kaedweni Stout. So this beer is gonna be just over 8% ABV. This will be the strongest beer I have ever brewed, without question. So it really is the big boy. And it's gonna be a lager, which is gonna be interesting. All of the Witcher beers have been lagers, which makes sense, because historically in that part of Europe, which I was looking at Eastern Europe specifically, because The Witcher takes a lot of influence from Poland and surrounding areas. All they drink is lager, like heavily influenced from Germany and heavily influenced from what was Czechoslovakia. Pretty much everything was a lager. Okay, this was our Styrian Goldens, which we need second. We need Triumph first. And then we need our Irish Moss, which is actually seaweed. Come on, friend, you can do it. It's really thinking about it. It turned out a nice color, too. Alright, now we need to go back into grams. Got our seaweed. Get a shout out for Mia. Kitten Squad. I didn't know The Witcher took inspo from Poland. Very cool. Also, so sorry I missed Hangout Sesh on Saturday. I went downtown to protest. No worries. How was the protest? Good for you. You are too kind for showing up and hanging out. That goes for everybody. Alright, we've got our Irish Moss and yeast nutrient weighed out. I don't think I need any more salts or additions. So we're going to put this bag away. Clean as you go. It was kind of disappointing more people didn't show, but it was still great. I think this Saturday will be much bigger. Wow. That's super exciting. I mean, it's very tragic that anything needs to be protested at all, especially what I'm pretty sure I know you were protesting. But I bet that's a pretty emotional and kind of life-changing thing to even be a part of. Alright. Oh, we don't need Triumph Pops anymore. Clean as you go. Oh, I'll tell you what though, I'm already ready for a beer. The whole world is just going up in flames. Yeah. Yep. Joe is your homebrew. Oh, hey. Perfect timing. Every time you think you can't be more surprised. Yeah. Fuck. I think that for the most part we are all on the same page about how things are going. But I think I want to keep this maybe a politics-free stream so that anyone who comes in wanting to learn about beer isn't turned off if they feel differently than us. If that sounds okay with everyone. I also want it to be like a safe space, but we could always chat about it in the Discord. That would probably be a good place. Cool, thanks y'all. Yeah, feel free to go if you have strong feelings that you'd like to share. Feel free to go to the Discord to chat about it. But yeah, I like to keep these educational and welcoming, so let's stick with that. Who else is sad that she kept the giant mess she made off stream? Not me. Not even a little bit sad. Alright, Nat Redeem, show us your homebrew. This is the Kolsch that I made. I made this alongside the Redanian Lager. And it's not the best Kolsch I've ever made, but I'm still drinking it. Cheers. It's got this like weird fruitiness to it that's almost like tart. I think it fermented too warm. Alright, beer. What's happening with you? Cheers! Not even sharing the weirdness. Listen, we're open, we're welcoming. I'm allowed to present the best version of myself on the internet. You already get to see how dirty my home is. But you can't see over there. Ha! Secrets. Alright, this is getting very close. Let's talk about beer. So, the beer is called Kaedweni Stout. Oh, and by the way, Nat, this is the beer that I already have some ideas for a label project for you. That's nothing. Mine is way worse. There's a reason that the camera is never shown on my bedroom. Yeah, that's kind of the deal I have going with Sari, is that I make a huge mess in the kitchen by brewing, but then she always gets a clean kitchen when I'm done. It might be the next day, but she always gets a clean kitchen. So, ooh, 2 months in a row. Thank you so much, Mia. Really appreciate you. But that's also weird because that's not my subscriber alert. What? Oh. Nope, whatever. It works. It's fine. Rainer, thank you for the gift. That might be why. It's my gift sub alert. That's absolutely why. Rainer, thank you so much. That's super kind of you. So this beer is called a stout, Kaedweni Stout. And stout is a type of ale. It's very dark, usually very bitter, usually very flavorful. When I was looking into beers from this part of the world, though, want to try again to make sure. I don't know. I don't think I shouldn't have any alerts through Stream Elements is what's weirding me out. It should all be going through Streamlabs still. Whatever. It's working. Dark beers are a specialty. I don't like most of them. I tend to agree with you. I'm not a big fan of like the acrid, bitter, roasty element of a dark beer. But here's the fun thing about this one. So this is a Baltic porter, which comes from the Baltic region. porter is technically also a type of ale, but in this case, it's actually a lager. They call it a porter, but they don't mean the same thing. Like if you go to England or you go somewhere in the US and you order a porter, it's different, which is why the label is Baltic. So Baltic porter is actually a lager, and it's this super high alcohol, extremely malty lager, which presents some difficulties. Lagers are fermented at colder temperatures than ales. That's just where the yeast likes to be. So it wants to be 55 to 65 Fahrenheit. I mean, 65 is actually pretty warm. Probably more like 50 to 60 Fahrenheit. Whereas an ale wants to be 60, 65, maybe 58 to 65, depending on the beer. Oh, we're starting to boil. I'm going to count it. We're going to be going for 60 minutes, so we are just going to set the 30-minute timer twice, because I don't have a 60-minute timer made, and this is the only one I plan on doing, and I don't want to make one. So help me remember that we need to run that timer again. And at 60 minutes, we need to add our Triumph hops. Yeah, 60 minutes. Okay, woo, here we go. We're making beer. Do it. So lagers like to go cold, which means that you usually need more and more and more yeast cells, because they also have a harder time when it's cold. It's like this weird balance between grow with the flow. It's this weird balance between they like to be cold, but in order to be cold, there need to be more of them. So usually brewers avoid lagers for as long as possible because they're more difficult. The temperature control, the added yeast necessities makes it harder. When you have a higher alcohol beer, you need to add more yeast because they will hit a range, they'll hit a level where they can't grow anymore because there's not enough food. Or they might even hit a level where there's too much alcohol and the yeast will start to die off. So you need more and more yeast for that. So not only do we need lots and lots of yeast because it's a lager, but we also need lots and lots of yeast because it's a high alcohol beer. This is probably the most technically difficult beer I have ever brewed and will probably ever brew. So I did a few things to make it easier for myself. First, we're going to give Grow with the Flow a shout out. Grow, how is your day going? Thank you so much for being here. I was also messing around with using stream element alerts on my laptop versus... No? Huh. Alright, whatever. We're gonna go with it. It's at least giving an alert. So, the reason... how do I want to say this? So we did 3 Witcher beers. We started with a pale lager, then we did an amber lager, now we're finishing with this big boy Baltic porter. I'm glad you had a really good day. That's excellent to hear. Any highlights? Any good things? Scoozy. Funfire is not sharing the beer. I'm not. You'll have to come here to drink it. I'm not even allowed to ship it anywhere in the US, let alone outside of the country. I've been reusing the yeast from all of these lagers. So when we did the Viziemen Champion, which is the pale lager, I let it finish, I drank it, and then I didn't clean the keg. I made the wort for the Redanian lager, and then I just put that on top of the yeast from the Viziemen Champion. So there was twice as much yeast, maybe even more than that, from what I added to the Viziemen Champion, ready to go for the Redanian lager. And so that fermented, and that made more yeast. And that fermented faster than it would have because it had all that yeast ready to go. And now I've drank down the Redanian lager, and again, I have left the yeast in place. So this yeast is now on its 3rd generation, and I haven't decreased the volume of the yeast at all. So we've got literally hundreds of billions of cells waiting at the bottom of the keg for this high alcohol beer that I'm going to ferment at a low temperature. So I'm hoping that that is going to provide all of the extra yeast cells we're going to need to overcome the cold temperatures and the high alcohol. I think I probably have more yeast than I need. I haven't sat down and done the math. And there is such a thing as an overpitch. You can technically put too much yeast into wort and it'll cause detrimental flavors, but it takes a lot of yeast to do that. So we should be right in that sweet spot of having an excess of what we need, but not so much that it's going to cause other problems. Grow went to the gym and it was actually really good. That's delightful. How many cartwheels did you do? I assume that's what you do, right? You just go back and forth on the floor doing cartwheels? No? Is that not what gymnastics is? Rainer says Grow is working hard to make room for good beer. Ugh, I wish I was. I just keep drinking the good beer without consequence, assuming that there won't be consequence. Give it a little stir. So this is going to be a big malty beer. I'm aiming for about 30 IBUs of bitterness because we want to balance out the sweetness and the maltiness while still letting the maltiness shine. And also 8%, 8.3% ABV is going to taste like alcohol. We don't really want that. So the higher bitterness around 30 IBU is going to help kind of hide the alcohol flavor as well, or at least accent the alcohol flavor. Nope, I don't do gymnastics anymore, sadly, because of a problem with my hip. Oh, bummer. So you go to a regular gym now. Well, it's still good for you for going to the gym. I can't remember the last time I went to a gym. Do some jumping jacks while waiting on the timer. No, because my floor is really old, and so the whole camera, the whole fridge will just shake. Also, I don't want to, but thank you for the suggestion. So, Baltic Porters, I heard boner. I have to run to the store. Have a great rest of the stream. Bye, Mia. Thanks for hanging out. I don't know when I accidentally said boner. It's okay. I'm okay with it. So Baltic Porters are a big dark beer, but they aren't. Also, I don't want to. They aren't a like dark, acrid, bitter beer like a porter or a stout. Instead, so I actually did some research on this beer. I've been trying Baltic Porters since like January, since I kind of had the idea of doing the Witcher beers. And I've had at least 3, if not 4, from different breweries on the East Coast. And they all have this really strong, like grainy, bready malt flavor, which is what we want. But then they also have this dark fruit, plum, raisin flavor. Like it's almost the main portion of, I would say it's almost the main flavor, is this dark fruit, plum, raisin. Which is kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting flavor in a beer. Usually you get that in like Belgian beers. There aren't really any American beers that have that. And then there's a little bit of roast flavor, not a lot. Really the dark malt is there, this Carafa Special 2, for the color. And the reason that I got Special as opposed to regular Carafa is that it's actually debittered. So it's not going to contribute very much like roast, acrid coffee at all. The Special B is a Belgian malt, and that's where hopefully a lot of the dark fruit is going to come from. The C60, Crystal 60, is going to be a lot of medium to medium dark caramel flavors, so think like toffee. Pilsner is just to fill out the alcohol in the body, and then Munich is going to be like crackery, bready, grainy flavor. And so that is kind of how we're building the flavors of this beer. So I'll pull up the malt flavor wheel, and you won't be able to see the beer anymore. I need an on-screen pointer. And does OBS have one of those that like I can put on top of all the other layers and move it around? You know what I mean? Okay, so let's start with the Munich. The Munich is going to be in the yellow cone, and it's about 6 Lovibond. So those numbers in the little black triangles represent Lovibond. So we're going to be somewhere between bread and biscuit. That's what we're going to get from the Munich. If we look at Crystal or Caramel 60 next, so we're going to go clockwise from the yellow segment into the caramel segment, and we're going to look for 60, and it's going to be kind of halfway between toffee and toasted marshmallow. Yeah, I could do that. That sounds like a lot of work now in the middle of a stream, but next time. So we've got toasted, halfway between the flavor of like toffee and toasted marshmallow. Then the special B, we're going to go clockwise one more time. So we're looking at the dried fruit segment. And the special B is around 120 Lovibond. So we're going to look pretty much all the way down at the bottom, somewhere between prune and burnt raisin. Burnt raisin, my favorite. So that's where all of the fruity flavors, the dark fruit flavors are going to come from. And then we'll go, let's see, the Carafa Special 2 is, I think, 340 Lovibond. So we might need to jump 2 segments clockwise to get to this roasty up top. But because it's de-bittered malt, it kind of is an exception to our malt flavor wheel here. It's not going to be chocolate and espresso. It's really just the color and just a little bit of those flavors. So it's going to be a really weird beer. Baltic porters are definitely like an acquired taste. And the more I had, the more I started to really enjoy them. Another reason that I went with a Baltic porter over just making like a Russian Imperial Stout, which is also from Eastern Europe.
Those grapes are huge.
Those grapes are huge. Actually, it has to do with grapes, ironically. So if you look at the fictitious lore of the Witcher world, and you look at the country of Kaedwen, it occupies very northern, so kind of where in real world maybe Estonia, Latvia would be. And in the Kaedweni history, they used to be able to grow wines or to grow grapes and make wine, and they can no longer do that. And so dark beers tend to be brewed where it's cold up north. But I was imagining if you were a country that was accustomed to wines and very like fortified heavy wines, and you could no longer make wine anymore, but you could still make beer, you would probably want a beer that had some of those like dark fruit aspects to it, that didn't just taste like a light or amber lager, it didn't taste like a super bitter stout. It would be a lot more nuanced, but it would still kind of knock you on your ass because it's cold and the high alcohol helps. It doesn't, but that's historically why dark, strong beers are from northern places. And it has those dark fruit and plum and raisin flavors to it. And I just made that up. That was for fun. It's also not going to be totally black. It's going to be very, very, very dark brown, but when you hold it up to the light, you'll actually see that it's more dark red brown than it is black. And because it's a lager, it should have some transparency to it. It shouldn't just be totally opaque. And like, it would have been really easy to make a Russian Imperial Stout or a high alcohol British stout, but I don't think people from Eastern Europe like Russia very much, so if I'm making an Eastern Europe inspired beer, it felt wrong to make a Russian beer. You know what I mean? So that's my reasoning behind that. And I get to pick, because it's my beer. Okay, now we gotta do some stuff. First we gotta skip this ad. We can't skip the ad. That's the worst. Anybody have any big weekend plans? Or anybody tried any new beers lately that they liked a lot? I got this really weird, you're going up to Seattle. Ooh, nice, how come? I got this really weird beer from work. I know you said you didn't really like Belgian beers, but I'm going to do a tour through Belgium this summer, and we will definitely go to some breweries. That's awesome. I think I need to be more educated about Belgian beers, because I've just tried a couple, and they maybe weren't very good examples of a Belgian beer, and it's also possible that they just kind of suffered from being shipped that long and then sitting on a shelf at a grocery store for too long. You know what I mean? Just for funsies, excellent. I like Seattle. It's a good town. I got this really weird beer at work. It's an imperial wheat ale. So it is a wheat beer that is 8.1%, and it's brewed with raspberries and lemon zest. And it does not taste like it's 8%. It sneaks up on you. Oh, hey, Jess. Thanks for the lurk. Glad you're here. Saw a beer with 15% alcohol when I went out to dinner. Like, what, you want to unalive me or something? Yeah, they can get up there. Absolutely. And at some point, they're technically like a barley wine. And barley wines usually age for a super long time, like at least 6 months. Most of them age for like a couple of years. So they tend to be expensive because they're high alcohol, but they're also expensive because they've had a lot of work. Like it took a lot of work to make that beer. Jess, how's your day going? It's good to see you. Going okay. Took yesterday off because we just finished up grading for the end of term. How are you all doing? I'm doing swell. Thanks for asking. It's a brew day. Always have a good time on brew days. Brew! Happy I finally caught a brew stream. Me too! They're always a good time. It feels like I have like 20 people over in my kitchen while I'm brewing beer, which like logistically would be difficult because this is how big my kitchen is. But it's fun. I'm just trying to think what else we need. That's the problem with the 60-minute boil. So we got a lot of time. Love hearing about the beer stuff, same Nat. Thanks. That's always nice to hear. Nat, can you, if you care to, share more about the art experience that you had today? But also, if you want to keep it private, I totally understand. This underground film called Encanto. No, never heard of it. Definitely don't have. Oh shit, where is she? Hang on. There's definitely not one of these in my house. I've been desperately trying to get one of these songs out of my head, so I looked up the translation to and it wrecked me. Is that what is that? Which song is that? If Sari were here, she could just tell me. But that part of my brain is at work. Her work, because it's with her. Oh, okay. I'm sure if I heard it, I would recognize it. That sounds nice. That sounds like a nice experience. I mean, I guess it depends on if it was a good wrecked you or. The lyrics are so painfully beautiful and hit me because of how I've been feeling about life and the world. Don't hold on too tight, so afraid of change in a world that never stops changing. Oof. Yeah, I feel that. Nice. Thanks, Nat. That's awesome. Okay, our mid-boil gravity is right where it should be. We started at 1065. We're right around 1070. We're going to go for another 30 minutes, so we should end around 1075, which is our projected original gravity for the beer. I'm only doing a 3-gallon batch, so I won't need to add more water into the fermenter, which would lower the gravity because it would dilute. But this time, because it's only a 3-gallon batch, we're going to do a full volume boil, and everything from in here is going to go in the fermenter, and then I'm not adding any more to it. But let's see if we can do Nat's favorite thing. So it's going to be pretty high up there this time because it's at 1070. Oh my god, it's so crooked. Just be straight. Who am I kidding? Nothing in this house is straight. Oh gosh. I don't know why it's being so difficult today. It's kind of around 1070. You maybe saw that. I don't know why it was so bright. Weird. That's what Sarah and I say when we can't get like a frame perpendicular and our fireplace is at a very steep angle because you can tell half the floor sunk. Nothing in this house is straight. Though Pop-Tart might be. I would assume. Don't need to assume about that though. She can let us know when she's ready. For those of you who don't know, Pop-Tart is a snake. She's a corn snake. I think I remember in her records she laid eggs once when she was like 2 or 3. She's turning 10 this year, so hopefully that doesn't happen again. It can cause some problems if she doesn't get them all out. Whew. It's getting hot in this kitchen. You see all this? I have a fan blowing. I feel like usually when I stream, the steam from the beer is not directly pointing at the camera, but ooh, it's in 3D. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and reset this timer. Oh god, now I'm just standing right in the steam. I was figuring a cat, but I love the snake baby too. Yeah, she's cute. She usually, what am I doing? Timer. Will come and hang out like right at the front of her glass when I do a brew day. And I think it's because the temperature of the whole house and the humidity of the whole house goes up. And so she gets a little more active. But also, there's a lot of unique smells going on. Sometimes when we cook dinner, she is like right at the front. She's like, you guys making chicken? I could have some chicken. She's cute. Okay, I'm bringing Pop-Tarts, so trigger warning if anyone's afraid of snakes. Dee-dee-dee-dee. What do you think? What do you think of the internet, Pop-Tart? Said it's hot over here. Where'd your head go? There it is. You wanna say hi? That beer smell good? Her head's so little. Like, her brain is the size of a lentil. Yeah, you have to go. You're tired of being on the internet? Ah, she's so cute. I love her so much. Okay, Pop-Tart, we have to skip this ad and then you can go home. Good job, baby girl. Ooh, you smell bad. That's my snake. How old can she get? In their native environment, corn snakes can live to like 8 to 10 years, but in human care, they can easily get older than 20. There are 2 corn snakes at my work that are both in their 20s. They're also a lot bigger than she is, though. She's turning 10 this year, and she's pretty slow. She's pretty chill. She's a good eater, though, which is super important in a snake. If you have one that's a super picky eater or tends to regurgitate its food, it can be such a hassle that you just fight all the fucking time. But she's a really good eater. We lucked out. I think she's gonna start shedding soon, though. We need to feed her again on Monday. So she hasn't started her shed by then. She typically sheds every 4 to 6 months. I don't know, the gap can change with the season. I think her shortest gap was 3 to 4 months between sheds. But I'm honestly surprised she hasn't shed yet, because I think her last one was in late October, early November. Okay, let's get our chiller set up. Can you take a before and after pic for the Discord? I'd love to see that vibrant new color. Yeah, you got it. Do you want the before pic to be right in the middle of her shed, or do you want me to take it now? She is starting to get a little dull, but when she is actively shedding, she's very dull, almost gray. God, 60-minute boils are so long. At 10 minutes, we are going to add our yeast nutrient, shrugs, I don't know, whatever the most dramatic change would be. Yeah, you got it. At 10 minutes, we're going to add our last round of hops. We're going to add our yeast nutrient and our Irish moss. And then we're going to add the immersion chiller, which I think is new for the stream. I've used it twice now. I don't know that I've done it on stream yet. So basically, this is a stainless steel coil. I think it's 25 feet of coil. And one end will hook up to my sink, and the other end will be the out end. And I'm going to turn cold water from my sink on, and it's going to go through this coil. And the coil is going to be immersed in the pot, which is why it's called an immersion chiller. And it's still going to take probably 20-25 minutes to chill, but I'll actually be able to get it to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Usually I've been chilling in my bathtub with a bunch of ice and water, and it takes 20-25 minutes, but I'm only getting it down to 75-80 degrees Fahrenheit. And this one, because I'm transferring this wort directly onto the yeast, it's going to start fermenting immediately. So I really want to get it as cold as I can, because I'd like to ferment at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to also fill up the sink with ice water, move the kettle into the sink, put the immersion chiller in, and then run water through. And we'll see how low we can get. Oh, I need to wait to hook it up though, because at 10 minutes we need to put this into the pot to sterilize it. So boiling liquids are really good for sanitizing things. So instead of worrying about getting the sanitizer in between every one of these coils, if I put it in boiling liquid for 10 minutes, it'll be sterile. Then I've also got this new aerator. I don't know if you guys have seen this. So once the wort is transferred into the keg, I can connect my drill to this and make sure we get lots of oxygen in, which is going to be great for the yeast and crucial for the yeast, actually. They are definitely not anaerobic. If they don't have oxygen, they won't grow. And what else? I probably need some sanitizer going. Anything that touches the wort, especially after it's chilled, needs to be cleaned and sanitized so we're not introducing any unwanted microbes. I spent a really long time building up this yeast culture that we're going to use, and I would hate for a wild yeast or a bacteria or a mold to be introduced. So we're going to be very good about sanitizing everything. Sanitization is about 95% of microbes killed. Sterilization is about 99% of microbes killed, and that's what's necessary for like surgeries. We're never going to get to 99% using household products, but 95 is good enough for what we need.
So you can use less.
So here's the keg full of yeast that was filled with Rudanian lager, but I drank it all. So there's definitely more yeast in here than there usually is, and there's probably a little bit of beer left over too. Let's see if I can feel. I think we're like up to here with yeast, which is a lot. I'm gonna wait to open it up and look inside until we're ready to transfer, just because I want this to remain sterile, and it should also be pressurized. Yeah, still pressurized. Not sterile, sanitized. I keep accidentally mixing those words up, which is bad. Five more minutes until we get to do something. So a lot of brewing is hurry up and wait. And it's mostly because you have to drastically change the temperature of your liquids throughout various steps of the process. To mash your grains and extract sugar, you need to be somewhere between 150 Fahrenheit and 155 Fahrenheit. So you measure out all your water, you add any like salts or other things, other minerals that need to be added, and you wait while the water heats up. And then you add your grains and you make basically a very runny oatmeal, and you let that sit for, I usually do 60 minutes. So you wait for an hour. And then you take the grains out and you start heating it up to a boil. So you have to wait to go from 150 up to 212 Fahrenheit to get to a boil. Once you get to a boil, you have to wait between 30 minutes and 60 minutes, depending on what your recipe calls for. Once you're done with your boil, you have to get your wort down to a temperature that's not going to kill your yeast, which is usually below 80. But if you're doing an ale, you're going to want it to be like 65 to 70. If you're doing a lager, you're going to want it to be 55 to 60. So then you have to wait to go from 212 to, in this case, 60. And so it's not a very efficient process. It takes a lot of water, takes a lot of time. You can see we're going to lose 2 quarts of liquid to the boil itself. So most professional breweries, it takes them to make 1 pint of beer takes 9 pints of clean water. And a lot of that is for cleaning, and a lot of that is for changing of temperatures. So there's some shortcuts that you can take. Like I tend to do a 30-minute boil. I have started doing no chill brewing, where while the wort is still hot, you transfer it into a keg and let it chill down overnight, and then pitch the yeast the next day. But you'll see we're going to use at least 5 gallons of water to chill this beer down to a level where I feel comfortable putting it in with this yeast. And some of this water, most of the water I'm going to reuse for cleaning because it's going to be warm water. But it's a lot. It's a lot. Hey, welcome back, Thespis. The lowest number that I had heard from a commercial brewery was, I forget which one. It's in Europe, and they own Duvel and they own Firestone Walker. That's going to bug me. But they have spent millions of euros to create a facility that only uses like 5.5 pints of clean water per 1 pint. Maybe 4.8 pints for 1 pint of beer. And they are like the leading industry, like the world's best brewery when it comes to water efficiency. And it costs them millions of euros to be able to do that. Yeah, beer is not a very sustainable thing. I mean, it is if it's local. It is like, making it yourself is probably the most local thing you can do, but I bought grains that were grown in Belgium, and I bought grains that were grown in Germany, and there is a CO2 emission associated with getting those grains grown and malted and then packaged and shipped to me. There are local maltsters. I just haven't really looked into it yet because they are more expensive. That grain costs more. So it's tricky. You gotta balance your your moral environmental compass with what's actually practical and doable. So for me, trying to use as little water as possible / reusing as much water as possible definitely makes me feel better about it. Oh, we also need to get the, that's life, baby. Yeah, it really truly is. No one can be perfect, and you're just gonna make yourself miserable trying to be morally perfect, you know? Alright, we're close enough to 10 minutes, we're gonna dump this shit in. Goodbye, shit. Have a good time. And here go our 10-minute hops, our Styrian Goldings. The Styrian Goldings I picked because they are grown in Slovenia. So again, an Eastern European ingredient to go into our Eastern European beer. Give this a couple of stirs. All right, and now we're going to introduce our immersion chiller. We're going to move this very hot kettle spider first without dropping my silicone pad into the beer. It's not beer yet, into the wort. Okay, we're fine. There's nothing gross on that. I thought there was. And then this is gonna slip. Yeah, I'm still listening. Right over here. Voila. Spread the coils out a little bit. We're gonna lose a little bit of temperature, but not much. Turn it back up onto high. We're going to make sure that these tubes, these vinyl tubes that are temperature sensitive, are not so close to the burner that they're going to melt. And it's coming back up to a boil, no problem. And unfortunately, my sink is over here, so for this chilling process, my back is going to be turned to you. But what we'll probably do is I'll get this set up and get it going, and then go on a break. And I'll do the bulk of the chilling while we're on break, and then we'll come back for the end of the beer. Since we are chilling the beer, we're going from hot to cold, something needs to get hot, right? There needs to be a temperature exchange. And what's happening is the cold water from the faucet is going through the chiller, and then the water coming out of the chiller is going to be hot. I'm going to be dumping the output water into this plastic bucket. But I don't want to melt the bucket. I don't think it's a food safe bucket, and it's the bucket we use to feed Pop-Tart in and transport her places. So if I break it, I will be in trouble from both my wife and my child. So the first run of water, like the hottest water that's going to come out, I'm going to put into this metal pot. So the first gallon probably will go into here. And then it won't be so scalding hot that it can't go in the bucket without negative consequences. And it's a nice bucket. It's got a screw top lid on it. It's got the logo from the facility she came from. Right? And then the other thing I'm going to start doing is filling the sink with cold water. Because that's going to help. We're going to move the kettle into the sink. And that's going to help. That's a bucket fit for a walrus. It's a pretty small walrus. Oh, this ice feels so nice. Alright, let's go ahead and take our final gravity reading of our boil. Sorry if that sink is annoying. And then the other thing I'm going to do is get our digital hydrometer uploading data. Oh no. My tablet has no battery. Okay, well, we're going to charge the tablet, but I also have the app on my phone. So our digital hydrometer is in the bottom of the keg. Yeah, there we go. Bottom of the keg. It is not going to be an accurate reading right now because there's so little liquid in the bottom that it's probably on its side. But as we fill it with liquid, it'll float, and then it'll tell us how dense our wort is, therefore how much sugar is in our wort. And it'll also tell us what temperature we're at.
Device is no longer connected.
Oh, God. My speaker just died. Oh, no, it didn't die. The hydrometer needs the Bluetooth. Alright, we're going to be musicless for a moment. Isn't technology funny? Okay, there we go. So like I said, the gravity reading is going to be way too high. It is definitely not 1.152 in there. But I do believe that the yeast is at 61 Fahrenheit, and that's a good number for us. Alright, let's see what gravity we're at. We're shooting for around 1075. Oh, where's my light? There's my light. This is a little bit lower than that. This is saying 1072, which I'm okay with. We're only off by 3 points. We'll also get a reading from the digital hydrometer. So we'll see what it says. And it's possible that my devices are off by a few points between each other, and that's totally normal. I don't have like lab quality gear here, and honestly, I'm more likely to believe the digital hydrometer because it's a more sophisticated piece of equipment. Alright, we've got our ice bath ready. When the timer hits 0, we're going to move the kettle into the sink. We're going to hook up the chiller. we're going to start drying off hot water. We'll probably go to break, and then we'll come back and do the beer transfer. I think we have a plan. I'm going to get all this stuff out of my way. Cheers. Now my speaker is yelling at me. Rude. Alright, those can probably stay. Let's just turn you off.
Power off.
0! Go, 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 go! Okay. Off. My path is clear. I'm going to pull this table back a little bit so I don't trip. Because at this point, getting scalding wort onto me is my biggest concern. I don't want to do that. I'm not wearing very much protective clothing. Alright, I've got these things coiled so they're not going to get stuck on anything. Woo, here we go. Crushed it. Get our ice back in here. Without splashing, we don't want anything going into the kettle. That would be bad. It's probably still hot enough to not be a big deal, but we want to practice, have good practices just in case. Okay. Slide this back over a little bit. Get our outlet hose into our pot. And our inlet hose onto the sink. Okay. Let's do it. Oh yeah, that's definitely hot. Which is good, that means that we're making a heat exchange. next 20 minutes is pulling those coils up and down. So I'm gonna put it on the big screen so y'all can watch some brew day highlights, and we will be back just as soon as I can, once this is chilled, to do the rest of the brew day. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll be back. Hey, hi, hello! How's everybody doing? Welcome to another brew day here at Snail House. And today we are doing the long-awaited, much questioned about oyster stout. So what is an oyster stout? Is it just a stout with oysters in it? Yes. In the early 1900s, British brewers started adding things to their stouts. One of the first things they added was lactose, which is the sugar that is derived from dairy. So that was the creation of milk stouts, or sweet stouts, or cream stouts, is what those are all called. And so it was a type of sugar that the yeast couldn't ferment, and so it left residual sweetness in the final beer, and it did add like a silky, creamy mouthfeel to the stout. And those were super popular. And it was also a way to get some dairy nutrients in your everyday life when you were buying beer, but you weren't necessarily buying milk. Then brewers started adding oatmeal. Oatmeal stouts are pretty popular. So the oatmeal, again, provides like a creaminess, a smoothness, a little bit of like buttery graininess, I would say. So oyster stouts, still really popular to this day. And then a small set of brewers, professional breweries, mind you, in the early 1900s, started adding oysters. So eating oysters and drinking stout were a really common food pairing at the time. So much that like Guinness had an entire ad campaign about drinking Guinness, eating oysters. And so it kind of made sense to combine the two. And there is just a long tradition of brewers, both like professional and home brewers, to put weird shit in beer. So these oysters were farmed super close to me. So you can see, can you see? Like I said, I don't want to dump all the brine out. There we go. One whole raw oyster. These were farmed super close to me, so they're local. The Chesapeake Bay is the major body of water coming up from the Atlantic Ocean up into the interior of Virginia and Maryland. And there are a lot of oysters and clams and other filter feeders in the Chesapeake Bay, in addition to blue crabs, which we're pretty famous for as well. So farming oysters is pretty sustainable as far as farmed seafood goes. They continue to help clean the water that they're in. So oysters and all filter feeders in general are super crucial to waterways, especially those wetlands and estuaries that you get as the fresh water is mixing with the salt water. So it's also important to know what body of water your filter feeders are coming from, because if it's super dirty, like that's what they're eating, that's what they're filtering, is all the water. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Everything inside looks like something I would eat. There it goes. No turning back now. Ooh. I mean, it smells good. It smells like I'm at a seafood restaurant. I'm about to eat a delicious snack. Now it's bivalve beer. There's no turning back. So we are doing an Irish stout, which has got some pretty robust aromas already. I think if I added too much oyster, when you went to smell it, it would smell like it, which is not what we're going for here. I don't even really want it to taste like oysters. What I want is a subtle addition of the briny saltiness from the liquid of the oyster and the meat of the oyster, and then the oyster shell itself is going to contribute some minerals that are already added to beer in the normal process of brewing, things like sodium, magnesium, and calcium. So it won't smell like oysters if I did it right. It won't even taste like oysters if I did it right. But a stout naturally has some sourness to it. There's almost an acidity once you get past the like cocoa, coffee bitterness of a stout. There's just a little bit of like tanginess almost. And so the salty brininess is just going to kind of round out that flavor. Oyster. Oyster. Covered in hop residue. Forgot about that part of it. Okay. We've got 2 boiled, ready to eat oysters. And move it to the fridge. Cheers. It's got a lot of sweetness from the wort. Also got some bitterness from the hops. Tastes like an oyster. Tastes, like seafood. I don't know, it tastes kind of like, when you buy those cans of smoked oysters? It tastes a lot like that. That's all I got, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out while I made a bivalve beer. Hey, hi, hello. I already added my Camden tablet. Remember, that's really important for getting the chlorine and chloramine out of your municipal tap water. We've got just slightly over 3 gallons of water, and I've already heated it up to above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Now last time we just added our dry malt extract and then went forward with the boil, but this time we're actually going to use steeping grains. So you can see that step right there is steep grains for 20 to 30 minutes. So that's what we're going to do right now. Bag of grain. We're going to tie a knot at the top so that it doesn't come out. Like so. And then we're going to take the lid off of this. Double check our temperature. And we're right around 123. Beautiful. As long as you're above 100, you can start this process. So we're gonna submerge this bag like a tea bag. And you wanna make sure that you're getting it fully soaked. You don't want any grain remnants left dry, basically. So I'm gonna dip this up and down like a bag of tea. Some tiny grain particles are coming out. That's totally to be expected. And you can see we've already changed the color of our liquid, which is a great sign. I smell a little bit like roast coffee, which is a good sign as well. So we're going to take this clip. We're going to clip our bag right to the side so it doesn't fall. Hopefully. This clip maybe isn't going to work the way I want it to work. How do you feel about that, buddy? Beautiful. I want to make sure the bag's not resting on the bottom, even though this is a thick clad pot. It's got a really thick bottom. I don't want to accidentally burn the bag because that'll break it open and then all the grains will go everywhere and defeat the purpose of having a bag in the first place. So now we're going to let this steep for 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to turn my 15-minute timer on because that's the timer that I have. And we'll know that when it goes off, we just have to wait a little bit longer. Give this a little bit of a stir. And we do want to check the temperature periodically. Normally, when we're trying to get all the way up to boil, I would have this turned up all the way on high. But now that we've got grains in the water, we want to make sure we stay below 170 degrees Fahrenheit. So every few minutes, I'm going to be double checking the temperature of this water. We've already gone up 4 degrees, so it's going to be a slow climb. So what we're trying to accomplish is a few different things. We're trying to hold the temperature for the proper extraction of flavors and sugars from the grains. We're still trying to get this wort up to boiling temperature because that's still something that we're going to need to do to make the beer. But we want it to stay below 170. Okay, so the grains have been steeped. We're going to pull out our little tea bag strain here. And that's it. That's all the grains we use. So we're done steeping. We're going to kill the heat because we're going to add our malt extract. If we keep the heat on, it's very likely that the extract will sink to the bottom of the pot and it'll scorch and burn and the beer will taste burnt. We don't want that. So we've turned it off. Now we're going to very slowly and carefully add the dry malt extract in. So pretty dark brown, almost black. The spoon is black. It is a very similar color. So let's see what happens when we add this. Alright, now we're going to scrape the rest of this sludge. You can also do this with liquid malt extract, like I mentioned on our last brew day, and it has the consistency of extremely thick maple syrup. And so what people usually do is they get a pot or a bowl of hot water, or at least pretty warm water, and they rest the container of liquid extract in it to loosen it up like honey, and then it pours a lot easier. But it's the same kind of problem. Excuse me, you want to make sure it's not scorching on the bottom, and liquid extract has a much shorter shelf life, and it can become discolored faster. So you want to make sure you're using as fresh liquid extract as possible. And then because I was buying 2 3-pound bags and splitting them in half, it was going to be a lot easier to do that with dry malt extract than with liquid. So there are pros and cons to both. You also would need to adjust the recipe slightly. You can't just use them one for one. I'm pretty sure malt extract has more fermentable sugar in it than the liquid extract does by weight, but there are lots of calculators out there. I'm going to start our 15-minute timer here and add our hops. So these are, what are you? These are Centennial hops. I bought them in a pellet form, but they've been floating around my fridge and freezer for a while, so some of it has already gone back into a powder, which is fine. I'm just glad that I'm using them now. They definitely stay more stable as a pellet than they do as a powder. Pretty much the enemy for hops as far as storing goes is temperature and air. So you want to keep them in an airtight container. You want to keep them preferably in your freezer, but fridge would be fine as well. You do not want them to be open and left at room temperature or hotter, because then they lose their alpha acids, which are what turns the beer bitter, but then they also start to take on almost like this funky, cheesy quality to them. So you really want them to be fresh. Okay, we need to add the sugar. So I am going to kill the heat so that the sugar doesn't scorch on the bottom. We'll add our 4 ounces of cane sugar. Sugar is in. We only lost like a minute of our boil. Shouldn't take too long to get it back up there. And there she goes. She's already bubbling. All right, time to move this to the back row. It's not time for the yeast to be added yet. I'm going to wait to add the yeast until we're below 70. But it's cool enough that adding oxygen isn't going to be detrimental. And it's cool enough that it's not going to melt the plastic. So oxygen is necessary for the yeast to ferment the beer. But if you add the oxygen too early, above, I mean, honestly, like above 100 is probably bad, but people tend to say 80 just to be on the safe side. If you add it too early, you're actually creating compounds that later on in the process will cause your beer to go stale faster. Okay. We get some of this tub water off so that it doesn't drip in on accident. Beer is pretty resilient, and if you pitch a high concentration of yeast, they're going to easily outpace any bacteria that are added. But if you're like overly cautious, you're more likely to never have an infected batch. Okay, here we go. I'll leave the last little bit of sludgy, kind of gross stuff. And you see all this foam that was created? I'll lift it up so you can see it better. That was the aeration of the wort by the foam. So we added a lot of oxygen, which is a good thing. So we're going to get our lid back on here. Let's clean up some of the beer that I spilled. This is why you need brewing towels. It's inevitable. There we go. 3 gallons of Dirty Penster Brown Ale. Thanks again for hanging out. Hey, hi, hello. We are here. It's another brew day here at Snail House. I'm gonna put the towel on the floor first this time. Ha! Clean. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. I'm Sunfire, and I usually stream video games, but a couple times a month I like to stream homebrewing beer from my tiny apartment kitchen. Welcome. Today we're going to be doing a honey lager. Here's the recipe right here. We're going to figure out the grand mystery of what color this beer is actually going to be. I wrote the recipe as a brown lager, plugged it into the fancy calculator, and the calculator told me that it was going to be an amber lager. Subtle, but different. So we're going to actually find out right here, right now, at Snail House Brewing. What color is the honey lager going to be? So I've got 4 quarts of sparge water here. Some people are really adamant that your sparge water should be a certain temperature, and that temperature is usually 168, 170 Fahrenheit. I don't care. This is just like to get more sugar out of the grains, and it's going to be a couple of points. So just warm water. Warm water is good enough. Some people will cold sparge. We're over 100 Fahrenheit, or about 111. So we can move the grains over. All right, now we're gonna really see what this color is. It looks pretty brown to me. Alright. So now we're going to let the grains sit in the sparge water for a few minutes. It's not an exact science. It's homebrewing. It's whatever you want. Stir our grains back into the water. It looks pretty brown. I'm pretty pleased with that. Even if it comes out a dark amber, as long as it wasn't like an orange coppery amber, I think I can call it a brown lager. Okay, so we're doing a couple of things new today. We're building the yeast starter. It's a recipe I've never made before, that's new. But we're also going to be utilizing what's called first wort hops. Down at the bottom, you'll see we just have one hop addition, and usually if you've watched these streams before or if you're familiar with homebrewing recipes, usually that is a number associated with a time in the boil to add the hops. But today, we're going to use first wort hopping, which means we're actually going to add the hops now, as it's warming up. Now we need to add hops. Boom. Those are all the hops we're going to use today. Very different from the hoppy golden ale that we made yesterday. Alright, let's turn this on. Full boil. Okay, so we've got what's called our first runnings. This was the wort that came off the mash for the first set. And now we've got our second runnings. So we're going to add that. Alright, so I need a volume reading. This is a wooden spoon that I wrote on in Sharpie and marked different volumes on. Fun tip. Let's see, hopefully we're at 14. Yeah, we are. A little over 14. So remember, the density of water in specific gravity is 1. So anything that's in the water, in the liquid, is going to increase its density up from 1. So let's see what we got. It looks like we're around 1044. Brewers make wort, yeast make beer. There are several different ways to introduce yeast to the wort so that they can go on to happily ferment and make beer. The simplest way, when you're done, chill this down to the proper temperature, pour your yeast in. Yeast comes in 2 different forms. It'll either be liquid, like it'll be a really thick slurry that comes in either a pouch or a tube, and you shake it so that it all homogenizes, and then you dump that straight in. Or, the type that I like to buy best is dried yeast. So this is a packet of dried yeast a friend of mine, it's not focusing, but a friend of mine sent me from England. So this is filled with dehydrated yeast, and when you add it back into liquid, it rehydrates and then is able to take off and get going from there. Usually when I use dry yeast, I cool the wort down to whatever temperature I'm going to ferment at, in this case 64, and then dump this in as is. Pretty simple, right? Usually on my brew day streams, we don't do a whole lot of sanitation of fermentation vessels because I ferment in the keg with no chill, meaning that the wort is going in very close to boiling temperature, which is still hot enough to kill any microbe inside. So when you do a normal fermentation where you're putting your wort into a plastic bucket, plastic conical, metal fermentator, you want to make sure it's sanitized. We're starting to boil. Here she goes. So I'm going to go ahead and start our timer. We're doing a 30-minute boil today. There we go, 30 minutes. We've already added our hops because we did that weird first wort hopping. So the only thing we have to do is 10 minutes from the end, I need to add the nutrients and the Irish moss. But the point is it can handle super hot temperatures. It's not going to rupture, it's not going to burst. I'm going to seal this up, put a little bit of CO2 on it, and then it's going to go out on my front porch until tomorrow mid-morning when it's finally down into the 60s Fahrenheit. Hopefully by then our yeast starter will have taken off, and then tomorrow when they're both ready, I'm going to add the yeast starter back into this and then pop it in the fermentation fridge. So this wort is still hot enough that it's going to kill any microbes. So even if I have accidentally introduced bacteria by talking over this open keg, this is hot enough that it's going to lyse all those cells. Crush it. So you can hear that glass ball spinning. That tube is all the way down at the bottom, so it's filling from the bottom up. We're not splashing and introducing air. And I'm just going to very carefully keep the tip of this tube at the top of the liquid and follow it down as it empties so that all of the sediment and hazy, starchy compounds sink to the bottom. We're not going to suck those up. Like I said, you can make this process as simple as you want, and you can make this process as complicated as you want. There are some aspects to this process that even I find super intimidating, so I don't really dive deep into those topics as much as I do with the stuff that I understand, or at least the stuff that I can teach myself. Think about it. People have been making beer since ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Sumeria. They had no idea what they were doing. They had no idea that yeast existed. They mixed a bunch of stuff in a pot, brought it to a certain temperature, and said a prayer to the goddess Ninkasi. And they truly thought that it was divine intervention that turned the liquid they put in that pot into an alcoholic beverage. So if they can do it, I'm pretty sure you can do it. We're flipping it upside down so that the hot wort that is hot enough to sanitize is now reaching the top of the keg. So we got the bottom of the keg sanitized, we flip it over, now we're sanitizing the top of the keg. It's gonna sit there, I don't know, 5 minutes, and then I'll move it out to my porch. And we did it. Tomorrow I'm gonna pitch the yeast, but we did it. I like to show you guys what the hops look like. We didn't use any fucking hops in this one, hardly. But here's all the hops compacted in the bottom. Hey, hi, hello, I'm back. Let's do this thing. So we gotta get the beer back over here. Oh, I'm tired. That was hard. Cool. Now we're gonna let it just like sit for a minute. All that like cloudy stuff that I stirred up will sink down. We'll get our towel and our keg ready. We're going to use a siphon to transfer today. Oh, I need my drill. Power drill. How are the homebrew highlights? Did it repeat itself? I don't remember how I set it up to work. I think it's just 3 highlight videos squished together. But I did tell it to repeat. Turn the sound down, that's fair. Alright, what order do I want to do things in here? Alright, let's look at the keg. And get our hydrometer reading visible. Yep, smells pretty yeasty in there. Hey, Catherine, how's it going? Didn't mean to miss the first 2 hours. How goes it? Pretty good. We are close to the end, but we're not done yet. So, thanks for being here. How's your morning going so far? Oh yeah, that's pretty yeasty. Pretty yeasty down there. Yes, can you even see my feet? No. Got him again. Wahahaha. Alright. So we need a long tube. Oh god. Our long tube has been submerged in sanitizer. Now we need our siphon. Perfect. We gotta get all the sanitizer out of the siphon. Perfect. Okay, is everybody ready? Your rules will never stop me, nor should they. We need more liquid in the long tube. Oh god, that's probably enough liquid in the long tube. I realized how high our liquid was getting. Okay, let's do it. Crushed it. So this time we're actually going to hold the hose up here to introduce even more oxygen as we go, so that we get a nice and foamy, frothy wort full of air and therefore oxygen. About halfway. Oh god. Too many things to pay attention to. Alright, so now we're going to let this drop into the keg so that I can use my other hand to tilt the kettle so that we can get more liquid through our siphon. Pretty exciting. And there we go. Let the rest of it empty in. Pretty good. Alright. Oh my god. You stay there. And then we're going to sanitize more of our stir stick here. Perfect. And we're going to put it in the drill. Siphoning. Blurp, 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 blurp. Okay, you got it. You're pretty much, you're an expert already, if you know what the end of siphoning sounds like. Drill. see that? I felt it happening. I saw it and thought, that looks like it's getting loose. Well, this is why we sanitize things. Oh, the stir rod fell out of the drill and into the keg. I thought, that looks like it's rotating. Rainer, where are you at now? I don't hide all of my crises off stream. Honestly, I sanitized it. It could probably just live in there. Whoa. What? No, thank you. Oh, it's just right here. No biggie. It's a tall boy. Got it. That was fun, right? More drilling. Okay, take two. Okay. Pretty good. We got air in there. So yeah. We are around 1072. Well, you might still be moving a little bit. But as long as we're between like 1070. Time Soup! Hey, how are you doing? Thanks for being here. How was the rest of your Zelda stream? I watched a little bit of it. I should put a lid on that. Zelda 2 gets a lot of needless flack and is much better than people say, but good God is it hard. I believe that. Okay, so we've got our beer in the fermenter. The yeast is already in the fermenter. We've got our digital hydrometer in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the fridge. Zelda 2, I watched someone play a bit of that. Yeah, that game is kind of brutal. I think I missed your Stanley Parable stream, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the end of the Kaedweni Stout Brewday. But I wanted to show you guys, I did make a yeast starter for the IPL, such is the way of NES games. Yeah, no hand holding, especially when you buy a stack of used Super Nintendo cartridges from your neighbor and none of them come with the instruction manual and you just have to figure out what the buttons are. Like, I remember Super Metroid being a very difficult game. Stanley Parable was a beast of a 24-hour stream. Oh my gosh. What was the occasion? You just needed to be Stanley for 24 hours? But anyway, yeast starter is basically a very small amount of wort without hops in it that you allow your yeast to grow in for like 24 to 72 hours. And then it increases your cell count, but then also when you dump this into the wort, they're already primed and ready to go. It significantly reduces your lag phase of waiting for them to get ready to start actually fermenting. Alright, let's check out the... Oh no, you wanted to get the commitment achievement, which involves playing for an entirety of a Tuesday. You didn't even get it, you were robbed. Oh yeah, that game has got some weird fucking achievements. Isn't there one that's like, don't play it for 3 years? Or something like that? Here is our hop spider, full of hops. We only use an ounce in the boil, so nothing crazy. When the Witcher beer series is concluded, which this will be the last Witcher beer brew day, I'm gonna go back to what I normally like to make and drink, which are like hoppy pales and session IPAs. And I think the first one I want to do is called Wayner's Pale Ale. It's a recipe written by a guy I know named Wayne, and it takes a lot of hops. It takes a fuck ton of hops. We might be seeing this kettle spider the fullest it's ever been. Hopefully big enough. That dropping this stir rod into the keg was enough on stream chaos for me, let alone when everything overflowed earlier. 5 years, and for Ultra Deluxe, that one has been replaced by Super Go Outside. When you don't play for 10 years, man. Have you played, there was another game by that developer. Oh, that like, I dig your shirt, thank you, I love this shirt. If anyone wants one, look up Rat Magnet on Instagram, R-A-T Magnet. She started this campaign to raise money, and it initially was for funds for legal fees for women who came forward about being sexually abused in the brewing industry, and then having legal fees set up for, some of them were sued for libel by the men who they came forward saying had abused them, because the brewing industry sucks like that. And it actually started this huge Me Too movement, I believe in 2020, maybe 2021. And now, like, just thousands of victims have come forward, and the Brewers Association is starting to make some big changes into how their guidelines are written, especially for like festivals and conferences, which is where a lot of abuse was happening. And there have been a lot of head brewers and CEOs and presidents of breweries that have been accused of being abusers, and so there's still a lot more work to do. And now most of the funds from the beer club shirts goes to Women of the Bevolution, which is another group that Rat Magnet works with now. Game Arcane is raiding with a party of 1. Welcome, Game Arcane. How was your stream? We're talking about abuse in the workplace, so that's cool. That's cool. Anyway, Women of the Bevolution is awesome. They not only protect victims who have spoken out, but are also in charge of trying to increase the diversity in the brewing industry as a whole by creating grants and internships for minorities. And it's a good group. The stream was good. Excellent. Let's see, what were you playing? Yeah, I bet your friend does know about it. Time Soup for sure. Sable. The Beginner's Guide is the other one by Davey. I haven't played it, but I watched a playthrough. It's real good. Beginner's Guide is kind of trippy, right? I was watching a playthrough by a YouTuber I really like, Mumbles, and she was saying that like the person that Davey is telling you about like might be him, it might be another person. I don't know. It's tricky. I beat the game Chasing Static and then started Sable. Awesome. I don't think I've heard of either of those games. What can you tell us about them? That class, I was so close to the end when I stopped. Ending was fine, I guess. There are a few endings and some memories I missed. I hate that. I was having that problem playing Witcher 3 and knowing that some quests, if you ended a quest in a certain way, there were going to be other endings that you would never get, or just having to like let go of some quests that I knew I was never going to do. I wanted to do all of them. Chasing Static is like a paranormal mystery game. Ooh, cool. 2 to 3 hour game in total. That's pretty short. Well, yeah, it's weird and sad and emotional. I think it's been confirmed now that it's pretty much a work of fiction. Oh, this is the Beginner's Guide. I'm sure that with just the nature of writing, though, that it's inspired by something internal that he experienced. Level up! Andrea, how are you doing? Brew stream! Yeah. The wort is in the keg. We did it. Now we're just kind of hanging out. I suppose I should probably change the tag of this to just chatting. Sable is a desert adventure game. Ride a hover bike and discover yourself. Wow. That sounds pretty good. Andrea, how is your day going? Thank you for being here. Lovely art and music so far. That sounds good. That sounds very chill. Has some Zelda vibes. Nice. The Zelda game I played most was A Link to the Past on Super Nintendo. Siri has played a lot of Zelda, though. Zelda is probably her favorite game series. We actually have a Zelda calendar that I picked out, mostly because I know she would like it. See, we got, this month is Twilight Princess. January was Toon Link, being very handsome. Link to the Past is going to be the next one once I crawl through Zelda 2. I don't know which one this one's from, probably Ocarina of Time. Oh, and some Breath of the Wild. Classic. Skyward Sword. Okay, cool. And I think this one was Majora's Mask. Does that look familiar to anybody? What's next month? Oh gosh, the staple broke. Ooh, next month is Wind Waker. Cute. So I really only played, Link to the Past. I think she's played all of them though, except for like the really old ones. I think her favorite is Skyward Sword, which is a pretty unpopular position. She also really likes Breath of the Wild, obviously. I really want the Wind Waker remaster rumor to be true. So they pushed back Breath of the Wild 2 for another year, and so the rumor is that now that they have space in the release schedule, they'll do a Wind Waker remaster, and maybe, there was another one mentioned. But I would watch Sari play that in a heartbeat. That would be awesome. I don't remember what the other game is though that they were gonna remake. Twilight Princess, maybe? God, that game is spooky. I played a little bit of that in college. My roommate waited in line to buy a Wii from Fred Meyers. So we were one of the few people we knew that actually had a Wii. And he got Twilight Princess and the Metroid game that first came out, and then a weird like Zelda themed target practice game. It was actually pretty fun. And then eventually we got Super Smash Melee. Brawl? I forget which one was we. Brawl. Go put my drill away. I really want them to port Twilight Princess and Wind Waker to the Switch. They remastered it for Wii U, so it wouldn't be hard. It just makes sense for them to do it. But they haven't because Nintendo doesn't want us to have nice things. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's true. That's what I've heard. Nintendo is a jerk, for sure. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. I think that's all I got. I'm enjoying hanging out, but maybe we should raid someone else? My plan was to raid Game Arcane. Looks like Shake the Box is streaming. He's playing Final Fantasy XIV. Thanks for hanging out. It was a good time. The last of the Witcher beers. The end of an era. I'll make sure to post updates on the Discord and photos. Yeah, he really did. He got me. He jilted me. 100%. Alright, beautiful, lovely folk. Let's do it. I'll be back with some Fallout. I don't know when. One of the days this week. Probably Friday. An early Friday stream. Because then I have to work Friday evening. And there's another day that I'm off. Saturday? Probably play some more Fallout then too. You'll have to go back and rewatch. Yeah, I explained the recipe maybe like 30 minutes in. And like the inspiration behind it. Oh, Nat class, I'm going to send you my label ideas. When When do you start? You do a Wednesday stream, right? I guess it's too early for that. But everyone go follow Thespis. And check out Wacky Wednesday. Whatever it'll be wacky, but it'll be fun. Anyone else streaming on Wednesday? Catherine, do you do a Wednesday stream? 90 minutes. Okay, so that's where I'll be in 90 minutes hanging out with Spawn and Thespis. Betty is back today. Ooh, fun. That sounds great. All right, Thespis, see you then. Thanks again for hanging out, everybody. Let's go say hi to Jimmy of Shake the Box. Bye.
Andrea, welcome in. What's going on? Thank you for healing the photo. Thank you. What's going on? How was your stream? How was your brewing? I almost put Sunfire. I almost put Sunfire 69. I think I've done that before, haven't I? Your face is pretty. Hello. Oh, thank you for the shout out, Odin. Dude, I appreciate you, man. I didn't realize you was here. You can do that. Appreciate you, dude. Kane, hello. Time 2, hello. Welcome in. Brewday was great.